In just a few days, 26 cars and 52 drivers will take on the 2024 Bathurst 1000. If you're new to Supercars or just drop by for this race every year, firstly welcome, and I'm going to run through every single entry and some of their stories in this year's great race so you know who to look out for and potentially even support in this fantastic event. Two quick notes before we hop in. Firstly, I'm going to run through this in reverse teams championship order as they currently stand, so in theory they're going to get more competitive as we run through. And secondly, the liveries that you'll see in this video are correct as of the last event in Sandown. However, the teams often do switch up their paint jobs at the great race, so just keep that in mind that the liveries might change by the time they're on track. Alright, let's get into it. Chahda Motorsport is a true Aussie battler story in this year's Bathurst 1000. They're a wildcard entry only appearing for Sandown and Bathurst, and they had their title sponsor back out at the very last minute. Fortunately, Boost Mobile swung in at the final moments to support them, and their journey is actually being followed at the mountain by a documentary crew. As for the drivers, Chahda has a few Bathursts under his belt, and they've got a rookie Brad Vaughan as their co-driver. Both will be looking to make a mark. Supercheap Auto Racing is the other wildcard in this year's great race, and you certainly don't want to underestimate them. They're using 888 machinery, that's the Red Bull team for those that don't know, with Craig Lowndes, a legend of the sport who was personally mentored by Peter Brock behind the wheel. The co-driver here is young gun Cooper Murray, who's set to join Supercars full-time in 2025 with Erebus Motorsport. These guys surprised everyone with a 5th place result at Sandown last time out, so they're certainly one to watch this weekend. Brad Jones Racing is the only 4-car team on the grid, but despite their decades of history, they have never won at Bathurst. In fact, they tend to have pretty wretched luck. On one side of the garage, you've got Macaulay Jones, the son of Brad, the team owner, and he's partnered with another up-and-comer, Jordan Boys. On the other side of the garage, you have Jackson Evans, a Kiwi who has raced around the world, including in the World Endurance Championship, and he turned to Supercars full-time this year. He's partnered with Dean Fiore, a West Australian with lots of experience at the mountain, and as for the other 2 cars in the Brad Jones Racing stable, they're a little bit further up the championship, so we'll get to those shortly. Next up is Blanchard Racing Team, another group that has had serious struggles so far this year, but they do have the experience of James Courtney and Jack Perkins in the Snowy River Caravans car. James is a Supercars champion, but he's never won the great race. Meanwhile, Jack Perkins is the son of the legendary Larry Perkins, meaning this would be a fairy tale victory if they stand on the top step. In the other car, the Cool Drive car, we have the Aaron Show, the West Aussie Aaron Love, partnered with Aaron Cameron. Love drives with so much exuberance, especially around Bathurst, but it has bitten him in the past. He crashed, I think, 3 or 4 times at the Bathurst sprint round that started this season. He'll certainly be looking for a smoother weekend. That brings us on to Erebus Motorsport, the 2023 Teams and Drivers Champions, but even in their championship year, they weren't able to defeat Red Bull to take the Bathurst win. Brody Kostecki will be looking to change that. He is the reigning drivers champion, and he's partnered with Todd Hazelwood, who actually drove for Kostecki in the opening rounds of this year while he was on the sidelines. We know this car will be running a different livery for sure. They're going to have a Chico livery unveiled in the days before this year's great race. In the other car, we have Jack LeBrock, another sturdy hand behind the wheel, and he's paired with Jaden Ojeda, affectionately known as Juice, a really exciting young talent who has won the Bathurst 6RA production car race on 2 occasions. Erebus are a long way off where they were this time last year, but they still show glimmers of pace, so we'll see how they roll out. Now we're getting back to the other 2 cars in the Brad Jones Racing stable, the stronger of the 4 entries, if you ask me. Andre Heimgartner actually broke BJR's drought this year in New Zealand, taking victory in a wet race. He's partnered with Declan Fraser, someone who's had turbulent results in Supercars so far, but if all goes well this weekend, it could be the breakthrough he sorely needs. Meanwhile, in the Middies car, the bright pink car, we have Bryce Forward, one of the few, if only, drivers from the Northern Territory in this year's great race. He's quite early in his career, but has lots of speed, and combined with another junior in Jalen Robotham, they could also be one to watch. At Team 18, these guys have one of the most experienced driver lineups anywhere on the grid, but they've had an up and down ride all year long. In the first car, we have Mark Winterbottom, a Supercars champion who has won Bathurst in the past. Only a few weeks ago, it was announced that the team were dumping him for Anton De Pasquale in 2025, and I'm sure Frosty will be feeling exactly that. There is no sweeter response for him than to go out there and win this year's great race, and he's got a great ally with Michael Caruso as his co-driver. In the other car, the Tradie Beer entry, we have David Reynolds, an absolute character of the sport, always pushing the limits on and off the track. He won Bathurst in 2017 with Erebus and is partnered with Warren Luff, who more often than not finds himself on the Bathurst podium. If these guys are given the machinery, they will no doubt be a factor this year. PremiAir Nulon Racing are a rising giant in the sport of supercars, and they're off the back of their very first podium at the Sandown 500. That was taken by James Golding and David Russell, a very strong combination known to have speed and consistency at Bathurst. And in the other car, you have Tim Slade, who announced he will actually retire from full-time driving at the end of this year. He'll be looking to end on a high with Cameron McLeod, a Super 2 driver who had a massive rollover in Perth earlier this year, but no doubt he's a talent and a great person for Slade to have alongside. Matt Stone Racing, or MSR, are another team who took to Gen 3 like a duck to water. They can be inconsistent, but when they're on, my goodness, they are on. And that's especially true for Nick Percat, who won Bathurst in his very first attempt with Gartanda many years ago. Percat has had a rough few years, but has been reinvigorated since joining MSR, and he partners with Dylan O'Keefe for this year's great race. The other car at MSR is steered by Cameron Hill, who hasn't performed as consistently as Percat this year, but is no doubt a solid driver on his day. He's partnered with another Cameron Crick, to steer the SP Tools Camaro, what I think is one of the best looking cars on the grid. That brings us to Shell V-Power, or Dick Johnson Racing, another team that tends to run a special livery at Bathurst, but we haven't seen anything at the time of recording. They are the Ford homologation team, the flagship, if you will, for the Ford manufacturer, but they have had massive struggles since the introduction of Gen 3 last year. That's certainly been the case for Anton De Pasquale, who's actually leaving the team at the end of this year to go over to Team 18. He'll be looking to end this stint on a high with Tony D'Alberto, his co-driver. These guys actually got third place in the great race last year, so don't count them out. Meanwhile, in the other Shell car, the Davidson family has generations of history in motorsport, and Will has won the great race twice. He's partnered with one of the most exciting young talents in supercars, Kai Allen, who has been with DJR as a junior for some time, and next year he'll get a full-time drive with Grove Racing. It's another combination of youth and experience that's certainly one to keep an eye on. Speaking of Grove Racing, here they are. These guys are the old Kelly Racing team. That's another budding powerhouse in supercars. Their first driver, Matt Payne, has only a few years of supercars experience under his belt, but already has a win from last year's Adelaide 500 street race. His speed is paired with the experience of Gartanda, a 5-time winner of the Bathurst 1000, and they got a strong result last time out, securing a 4th at Sandown. Richie Stanaway has had a roller coaster supercars career so far. He was actually on the sidelines for a number of years before he came back in 2022 in a boost wildcard and performed amazing in the wet weather. Then last year he took victory as the co-driver with Shane Van Gisbergen at Bathurst. That landed him another full-time drive for this year, but he's currently looking without a seat again for 2025. He's certainly hoping for another strong result this weekend with Dale Wood this time alongside. That will hopefully land him a new full-time opportunity. Now we get to Walkinshaw Andretti United. For anyone international, this team is actually part owned by Michael Andretti, as the name would suggest, and also Zach Brown, the McLaren CEO. Their lead driver is no doubt Chaz Mostert, who could be Ford's biggest hope at the mountain this year. He's a 2-time winner of the great race, including a thrilling finish in 2014 that I was lucky enough to witness in person. He's partnered with Lee Holdsworth, who Chaz won the race with in 2021, and while they'll no doubt be shooting for glory again, Chaz is in the championship hunt, so they do have some risks to consider. The other car at WAU can pretty much go for broke though, and that's exactly what I suspect Ryan Wood and Fabian Coulthard will be doing. Wood is a really young but exciting Kiwi in the sport who's made an impression in his debut season, and he's partnered with Coulthard, who has loads of experience at the mountain, both good and also not so good, including a huge rollover over a decade ago. At Tickford Racing, we have Cameron Waters, one of the most popular drivers in the Supercars Championship, who has actually made a few NASCAR appearances now as well. He's come painstakingly close to winning Bathurst on multiple occasions, but has just never quite got there. He's hoping to change that this year, once again partnering with James Moffat, son of the Supercars legend Alan Moffat. If these guys take the win, it would not only be long overdue, but I suspect a very popular one. The cash draw car makes up the other half of Tickford Racing, and you'll find Thomas Randall behind the wheel of that one, who has had a year of ups and downs, but when he's in the zone, he has a lot of speed. He's a great character who's paired with Tyler Everingham this year, who may be young, but he's already starting his 4th Bathurst in 2024. Then finally, we have Red Bull Ampol Racing, or 888, the flagship homologation team for the Chevs, and these guys are absolutely smashing it right now in the team's championship. Brock Finney was in the hunt last year, chasing down his teammate Shane Van Gisbergen before he had a heartbreaking failure with his gear tower letting go in the final stages of the race. He'll be hoping for redemption this year with team principal Jamie Whincup sharing the driving duties in that car. On the other side of the garage, we have our championship leader, Will Brown. Brown, fun fact, is actually a qualified pilot, often flying himself to the mountain, and he knows how to make a supercar fly on track too. His co-driver is Scott Pye, who's had a series of great results at Bathurst over the years, and this pairing actually won the last race last time out at the Sandown 500. No doubt these guys will be hard to beat, but this is Bathurst. You can pretty much throw out the form guide, because when you put 26 cars on this grueling track for 1,000 kilometers, just about anything can happen. Let me know who your money is on to win this year's great race, or at least who you're hoping takes the flag. And if you are new to supercars or just want to get set for this year's great race, keep an eye out for my full round preview dropping in a few days' time. I'll talk more about the track, the format, the weather, and all the latest news in the championship. In the meantime, let me know your thoughts down there in the comments below. Treat people like your trackside, and I will see you in the next one.